snipers to pin, main force to strike. August 14th, 1968, northern edge of Quang Tri Valley, central Vietnam. I was Major Thomas Reed, 31 years old, commanding a reinforced Marine infantry company, 132 men, moving through what intelligence described as a cleared area. The mission was routine, no major objectives, no expectation of heavy contact. We advanced in a standard formation, scouts forward, platoons spaced, slow movement through low jungle. The air was thick, visibility was poor, everything felt quiet, too quiet. The war didn't announce itself with explosions or machine gun fire. It began with a single shot, not loud, not close, perfectly placed. One of my forward scouts went down, not dead, hit in the thigh, alive, screaming, unable to move. The entire company stopped. That wound told me everything. A sniper who wants to kill aims for the head or chest. This shot wasn't meant to kill, it was meant to stop us. We pulled the wounded man back under cover. Medics worked fast. No second shot followed. No movement, just silence. But no one stepped forward again. We were pinned, not by firepower, but by uncertainty. No one knew where the shooter was. No one knew who would be next. Every attempt to shift position was answered, not with a hit, but with a warning shot. A bullet cracking past a tree. Dirt kicked up inches from a boot. No more casualties. But complete paralysis. We tried calling artillery. No coordinates. We requested air support. No visible targets. One sniper, maybe two, had effectively frozen more than 100 American Marines in place. That's when the tactic became clear. The sniper wasn't there to win the fight. He was there to control time. What I didn't realize then was what was happening beyond our sight line. 500 to 700 meters behind the sniper's position, a larger force was moving, quietly, deliberately. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. Every minute we stayed frozen was another minute they gained. Time, in war, is ammunition. 40 minutes passed. No new shots, no advance, no retreat. We had lost initiative, and in combat, standing still is often more dangerous than moving forward. The sniper didn't fire to kill. He fired to hold us exactly where they wanted us. I understood that truth only later, when the main attack finally began. The sniper didn't disappear. He simply stopped shooting, because the main force was ready. The sniper fire stopped. No warning shots. No movement. No sound except insects and our own breathing. That silence was worse than the bullets. In Vietnam, silence after contact never meant withdrawal. It meant transition. I ordered my platoon leaders to prepare for movement, slow and controlled. We still didn't know where the sniper was, but I believed, wrongly, that the worst had passed. Then the jungle spoke again. Not with rifles, with mortars. The first round landed behind us. The second landed inside our perimeter. They had walked the fire in perfectly. 82mm mortars, fired from positions we couldn't see, likely pre-registered. The sniper hadn't just pinned us. He had fixed our exact location for their fire controllers. We took casualties immediately. Men wounded by shrapnel, radios damaged, movement corridors cut off. This wasn't random shelling. This was a planned sequence. Sniper pins movement. Mortars disrupt command and cohesion. Main force closes in. I realized then we were inside the kill zone. I called for artillery. Coordinates were approximate. Terrain masked everything. I requested air support. The answer came back cold and clear. Enemy too close. That was the enemy's real objective. By forcing close contact, they denied us our greatest advantage, distance-based firepower. Jets, artillery, naval guns, useless if they risk hitting your own men. The sniper had done his job. Now the battlefield belonged to infantry. They didn't charge, they emerged. Small elements first, 3 to 5 men at a time, appearing from multiple directions. AK rifles, RPD machine guns, coordinated movement. They used the terrain perfectly, tree lines as fire lanes, bomb craters as cover, vegetation to mask distance. This wasn't a spontaneous attack. This was rehearsed. Their goal wasn't to overrun us immediately. It was to collapse our formation, piece by piece. By the time we fully engaged, they were already inside 50 meters. Close enough to hear voices, close enough to smell gunpowder and sweat. Too close for airstrikes, too close for artillery. Exactly where they wanted us. The sniper had never been the main threat. He was the anchor, the hand that held us still while the fist formed, and now that fist was swinging. We trained to fight armies. They trained to fight our advantages. Maps are useful until the enemy is close enough to hear breathing. By the time the main force closed in, our neat platoon sectors were meaningless. Visibility dropped to a few meters. Jungle swallowed sound and direction. Orders became suggestions. Plans became reactions. I tried to reposition 2nd Platoon to reinforce the left flank, but movement drew fire instantly. Not massed fire, selective fire. They weren't spraying, they were choosing. Every attempt to maneuver triggered bullets from different angles, forcing us back into place. That's when I understood. This wasn't about killing us fast. It was about controlling our shape. The enemy didn't attack as a single wave. They attacked in cells. 3-man teams moved independently, each with a clear role. One shooter, one observer, one maneuver element. They fired just enough to fix a position, then shifted laterally. When we returned fire, they were already gone. Meanwhile, another cell opened fire from a different angle. This created the illusion of a much larger force, and more importantly, it fractured our response. Platoons became squads. Squads became isolated groups. That's how a company dies without realizing it. We were trained for fire superiority. They trained for fire denial. Our doctrine assumed that if we applied enough fire, the enemy would either withdraw or be destroyed. But they never stayed long enough. They exploited jungle masking, vertical terrain, psychological pressure. Every burst we fired revealed our position. Every radio transmission marked command nodes. They weren't fighting our men, they were fighting our system. Then the sniper fired again. One shot. This time it killed a radio operator. Clean, precise, not random. The sniper wasn't gone, he was waiting. He re-entered the fight only after the main force had us compressed, when a single shot could cause maximum disruption. That's when the pattern became undeniable. The sniper wasn't tactical, he was operational. At less than 30 meters, war loses abstraction. You stop thinking in terms of objectives and start thinking in terms of survival. I saw faces through foliage. I heard commands shouted in Vietnamese. This wasn't chaos. It was controlled aggression. They were forcing us inward, compressing space, turning terrain into a weapon. And for the first time that day, I knew we weren't just pinned. We were being shaped. At some point, doing nothing becomes the most dangerous option. By mid-afternoon, my company was compressed into an irregular pocket no larger than a football field. Casualties were mounting. Radios were unreliable. Ammunition was being burned faster than planned. The enemy wasn't rushing us. They were letting pressure do the work. That told me something important. They expected us to stay passive. So I made the one decision they weren't planning for. We would attack, locally, violently, and without warning. A full assault was impossible. Instead, I ordered 2 squad-sized countermaneuvers, not to break through, but to disrupt. The goal wasn't ground. The goal was shock. We identified the most aggressive pressure point, where enemy fire was heaviest, but movement was limited by terrain. That usually meant command or control elements nearby. The squads moved fast, low, and loud. Grenades first, then rifles. For the first time that day, we dictated tempo. They reacted immediately, but not chaotically. Fire intensified from flanks. Sniper fire resumed, trying to cut leadership again. But something had changed. Their rhythm broke. They were forced to respond, not shape. That matters more than numbers. Even a well-planned ambush loses power once initiative is contested. For the first time since morning, we gained space. Not much, but enough to breathe. We still couldn't call airstrikes, but we didn't need jets. At close range, hand grenades, M79 launchers, and coordinated rifle fire became decisive. We marked danger close artillery, risking our own safety. A few 105mm rounds landed just outside our perimeter. Not perfect, but disruptive. The enemy wasn't immune to fear. They simply managed it better. Until now. The sniper fired again, one final time. But now his shots were hurried, less precise. We had shifted too much, too fast. The sniper's greatest weapon, predictability, was gone. That's when I knew the balance had changed. Not in our favor completely, but enough. The enemy had lost control of the battlefield's shape. And once that happens, withdrawal becomes more likely than victory. There was no final charge, no dramatic collapse. As daylight faded, enemy fire thinned, not because they were broken, but because their objective was complete. They had delayed us. They had inflicted casualties. They had withdrawn on their own terms. By nightfall, we secured a defensive perimeter and called in resupply. Medevac birds came in at first light on August 15th, skimming treetops under escort. The jungle was quiet again, just like it had been before the first shot. On paper, the engagement was listed as a successful contact. Enemy encountered. Enemy driven off. area secured. But reports don't record who controlled the fight. They don't show how. One sniper fixed an entire company. Mortars turned time into a weapon. Close contact neutralized air power. No line in the report explained how carefully the enemy chose when to fight and when not to. The sniper was never meant to be decisive alone. His job was to stop movement, fix attention, buy time. Once that was done, his role diminished. That's the mistake we kept making in Vietnam, treating snipers as isolated threats instead of battlefield keys. The enemy understood something we struggled to accept. You don't need superiority everywhere. You need control at the right moment. I entered Vietnam believing technology decided wars. I left that valley understanding something harder. Technology amplifies advantage, but only if the enemy allows distance. That day, the enemy denied distance deliberately. They forced us into short sight lines, compressed decisions, human limits. They didn't defeat us with numbers. They defeated our assumptions. Years later, when I watched new wars unfold, I recognized the pattern immediately. Different terrain, different uniforms, same idea. Pin the enemy, control time, deny distance, strike where doctrine breaks. The sniper's first shot didn't kill a man. It killed an illusion. And that illusion, that firepower alone decides battles, never truly returned.